American universities on edge, staring down federal funding cuts to the tune of billions of dollars.
The conflict in Iran is also being felt on college campuses.
60 children taken out of incredibly dangerous situations.
Are stealing tens of millions of dollars in college financial aid, forcing colleges and the U.S. Department of Education to bolster their fraud detection systems.
The lecture notes were still on the whiteboard. 14 rows of students had sat in that classroom 6 hours earlier, taking notes, asking questions, earning credit. By midnight, the same room held 12 FBI agents and a forensic accounting unit pulling hard drives from beneath the floorboards. The professor was already in handcuffs, and the number on the seized financial ledger, $45 billion, made one senior agent read it twice. Go back 9 months. Someone inside the Department of Justice flagged an anomaly in a federal research grant database. 3 universities, 3 separate grant applications, all filed in the same fiscal quarter, all routed through the same obscure pharmaceutical intermediary registered in Delaware. On paper, the grants were for opioid abuse research. The irony of that would not become clear until much later. What was clear immediately was that the intermediary company had never filed a single research report. It had, however, moved $340 million across 17 accounts in 14 months. That flag started everything. By the time the FBI's Financial Crimes Division looped in DIA and ICE, the thread had already unraveled far enough to reveal something nobody in federal law enforcement had seen structured quite this way before. A distribution and laundering network for Ching, the cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, concealed almost entirely inside American academic infrastructure. Faculty credentials, institutional bank accounts, research grant pipelines with federal protection and almost zero external auditing. 4 questions nobody could answer going in. Who recruited the faculty? How long had the network been running before that database flag? How was fentanyl physically moving through campus supply chains? And who at the top was actually running this? Hold that last question. Because the answer arrived in a way nobody predicted. The raids launched simultaneously across 6 states on a Thursday morning at 5:20 a.m. Chicago was the primary target. FBI tactical units moved on the University of Northern Midwest campus, while ICE enforcement teams hit 3 off-campus properties linked to faculty members flagged in the financial trace. DIA strike teams handled 2 pharmaceutical warehouse locations on the city's northwest corridor. Every team went in at the same second. That coordination mattered, because the network had demonstrated, repeatedly in the seized communications, an ability to warn its nodes within minutes of any law enforcement movement. The first thing agents found in the Chicago campus building was not what the warrant described. The warrant listed research servers and financial records. What they found, behind a false wall in a basement storage room, was a fentanyl pressing operation. Industrial-grade pill presses, precursor chemicals in quantities that require federal licensing, and roughly 3 million fentanyl pills, finished, packaged, and labeled to resemble 3 different brands of legitimate prescription medication, sitting in a university basement, beneath a building where undergraduates studied every day. Pause on that. Simultaneously, in Los Angeles, FBI agents arrested a chemistry department associate dean at his home at 5:21 a.m. In Austin, ICE detained a pharmaceutical policy lecturer outside a coffee shop 2 blocks from campus. In Scottsdale, Miami, Manhattan, and Las Vegas, 14 additional faculty members were taken into custody within a 20-minute window. Total arrested that morning across all 6 states, 28. The digital forensics team going through the Chicago servers had a specific target. One name kept appearing in the financial architecture, always 1 layer removed from direct transactions, always attributed to an institutional account, rather than a personal one. The name was Dr. Victor Salazar. Criminology professor, published author, peer-reviewed researcher on, and this detail is not incidental, the economics of drug trafficking networks. He had been studying the system he was running. Salazar's financial trail looked, on the surface, like a moderately successful academic. Modest salary. Standard retirement account. a consulting arrangement with two non-profit organizations, but the forensic accounting unit had spent 4 months mapping a parallel structure underneath that surface. 17 shell companies, 9 of them registered to former students. Grant disbursements that entered university accounts legitimately and exited through vendor payments to companies that did not perform the services they were paid for. And at the base of every withdrawal chain, the same routing pattern, the same account sequencing, the same fingerprint, one architect, one method, $45 billion over 6 years. Now here is where the operation shifted. At 9:14 a.m., 3 hours after the raids began, the lead FBI financial analyst pulled a communication thread from Salazar's encrypted secondary device, a phone recovered from a locked drawer in his campus office. The thread was between Salazar and a contact saved only as RV. 41 messages. The earliest dated back 4 years, and in message 37 sent 8 months ago, the contact wrote, "They're watching the Delaware entity. Move the architecture. Use the Nevada trusts." Someone had known. 8 months ago, someone with knowledge of the federal investigation had warned Salazar directly. The leak did not come from the task force. The communication metadata pointed somewhere else entirely, toward a Diaz contractor with access to financial intelligence databases. That investigation was immediately separated, sealed, and handed to the Inspector General's office. The task force had been compromised from the outside, and the network had used that 8-month window to partially restructure. What the raids captured was real, significant, damaging, historic in scope. But it was not the complete picture. Part of the architecture had already moved. What the seized evidence did confirm was the continental scale. Singh had used the faculty network not just for laundering, but for distribution intelligence. Campus pharmaceutical research gave cartel logistics planners access to prescription drug supply chain data, shipping schedules, regional demand patterns, DIA quota allocations for controlled substances. That information was used to route fentanyl shipments into gaps in the legitimate supply chain, making detection geometrically harder. This wasn't a cartel using universities as a convenience. This was a cartel using universities as an intelligence asset. For a moment, roughly 6 hours on that Thursday, it looked like a clean historic takedown. 28 arrests, a $45 billion network exposed. The press conference language was confident. One of the most significant domestic financial dismantlement operations in DIA history. Agents were shaking hands in parking lots. Then the forensic team in Chicago finished their pass on Salazar's primary research server. The network had a succession document. Detailed. Operational. It named a replacement financial coordinator, a replacement grant pipeline, and 3 universities not touched by Thursday's raids. Already embedded. Already active. The document was dated 6 weeks prior. Salazar had not built a criminal enterprise. He had built an institution, one designed to survive his arrest. The human weight of this settles differently when you consider what the network actually produced. The 2.3 million fentanyl pills found in that Chicago basement were tested. Dosage consistency was near pharmaceutical grade, which made them more dangerous, not less, because users had no way to identify them as counterfeit. 2 federal prosecutors working the case had, in the prior year, each lost a family member to fentanyl overdose. Neither disclosed it. Neither stepped back. They worked the case anyway. That fact was not in any press release. It probably shouldn't have been, but it was true. A victim advocacy coordinator brought in to assist with the human trafficking component of the investigation. A separate thread pulled from Salazar's communications involving migrant workers used as distribution couriers, described reviewing case files for 12 hours, straight and then sitting in her car in the parking garage unable to move for 40 minutes. She said the scale wasn't what broke her. It was the ordinariness of it. The faculty meeting minutes, the grant renewal forms, the professional headshots on university websites. Evil wearing institutional clothing is harder to process than evil in the dark. 28 people arrested. A $45 billion network fractured. A DH leak under investigation. And somewhere, in a city not named in Thursday's warrants, on a campus not yet flagged, in an office with published research on the walls. The successor is already working. If that troubles you, it should, because it troubled everyone in that task force. And they're the ones with the warrants. The next chapter of this investigation is already open. The 3 universities identified in Salazar's succession document are now under federal surveillance. What agents find there, and what else they find attached to it, is a story that may be larger than Thursday's operation by an order of magnitude. When that breaks, we'll cover it.